Planets in Space Engineers 2 are epic. Okay, while it looks like we may not be getting planets right now, and I'll explain why later on, we can at least appreciate that the planets in the upcoming game are a massive improvement over what we currently have. We're looking at massively improved planetary landscapes, water on planets, cave systems, improved voxel texturing, and of course improved rendering. All of this is going to make playing on planets in Space Engineers 2 such a big improvement over what we currently have in Space Engineers 1. So, what are all these features and how do they work? Let's explore. Hi everyone, I'm Captain Jack. Welcome to my channel. I've been covering Space Engineers for over 10 years and we're about to start a new adventure with Space Engineers 2 coming soon. If you want to join me on this journey, hit that subscribe button and come join my Discord to talk more about the game. Okay, let's go. Let's quickly talk about game engines. Space Engineers 2 uses the VH3 game engine, which is a massive improvement on what Keen Software House, the developer, previously produced. VRage is an in-house game engine developed by Keen. VRage stands for Volumetric Rage and or Voxel Rage. VRage's core features is volumetricity within the environment. Volumetric objects are structures composed of block-like modules interlocked in a grid. Sounds complicated, I know, but it will provide context to what we're talking about in today's video. The first version of the VRage game engine was used for Mine Wars 2081. Let me know if you've actually played that, by the way, I still haven't. VRage 2.0 currently powers the first Space Engineers game, while the new and improved VRage 3 is used to build Space Engineers 2. It has a new and improved voxel system and multi-core CPU support, something that players have wanted for Space Engineers for quite some time. So using this new engine, what can we expect from Space Engineers 2? Well, we've seen bits of development and testing for the past few years. Let's explore. A quick disclaimer, what you're about to see us go over is in development systems and features that may come to Space Engineers 2. As the game is in the alpha stage of development, everything is subject to change. Just please keep that in mind. It's important to keep our expectations in check and not let speculation run away. Okay, let's go. Planets in Space Engineers 2 are getting an overhaul from how we see them in the current Space Engineers game. In the screenshots on screen now, you can see how many of the individual planet features are coming together to create a new environment for players. An example, there's the terrain voxel system, which is driven by height maps, detail maps, and additional voxel entities. Not to mention the Raymarch water rendering, which, combined with the experimental cloud system, produces some fantastic looking environments. Just look at this little cute little outpost setup on those planets, it looks amazing and I kinda want to play with it now. Another example of the new planetary landscapes is cliffs. As someone who loves to make mountain bases, I'm very excited about this one. It seems cliff landscapes are the most challenging environment for the developers, mainly due to the surface for the height map based terrain system. VH3 combats it with procedurally placed overhangs and crevices on the slopes. You can see some example pictures on screen now. Let's talk about one of my most anticipated features for planets in Space Engineers 2. One of the most exciting features of what Keen have been working on with the new VH3 engine is cave systems. Now, we don't know too much about these caves, but from a few screenshots shared by VH3's tech lead, Jan Hushnek, and I'm sorry Chendo for likely butchering your name there, caves with water can be found on Space Engineers 2 planets. It seems the developers' challenge for Space Engineers 2 is making the water surface smooth to create these ponds we see in the caves. They also likely need to make the ponds shallow, as according to this information, one water cell is approximately 1 meter thick. Of course, let's talk about water on planets. Unless you've been living under a rock in the past year or two, you've likely heard the news about Keen Software House experiments with volumetric water. Keen's goal with the water system is to have it fully interactive and at a planetary scale. Water will be supported in VRage 3's game engine and will be able to react to changes in the game environment, such as ships crashing into it and destruction to the terrain. So if I cut through the side of a mountain and create a river, then the water will react as you'd expect it to. Again, a little disclaimer here, the footage we're looking at is some early VH3 engine experiments from this year and last year. As such, it is likely not the most up to date when compared to something new that could be shown off soon regarding the development of Space Engineers 2. We've already seen advances in the latest trailers for the game when it comes to rendering systems, i.e. things look a lot better than they do in these videos. Keen developers have previously demonstrated wave systems by adding wind properties like strength and direction. Using the engine systems, waves are generated to combine many waves together. You can see an example of a system being experimented with on screen now. In a previous newsletter, Keen said this possesses an interesting problem. Scaling an interactive, ever-changing water system to the whole planet is a big performance problem. To be honest, we could have all guessed that. Now, imagine changing the flow of water, creating a new river arm, or digging a hole at the ocean's edge, creating a new bay. All of this will require some immense performance calculations. To solve this problem, the developers had to look at some properties of water systems that they could leverage. When you change on one side of the ocean or lake, it hardly affects the opposite side. This also applies to a river to some extent. The whole planetary water ecosystem, including rivers, lakes, and oceans, is seemingly stable most of the time. This means that although water flows, it does not change its amount. Now, leveraging those properties could help Keen postulate a few rules for the interactive simulation, including: we do not simulate a stable state, render just visualizes water flow. After every change, we get a stable state as soon as possible. Large bodies can work as infinite water sinks when the incoming amount of water is significantly smaller than the overall body. Rivers have infinite sources of water. Those are just a couple of states we could look at water in Space Engineers 2. Now, this allows the developers and the VH3 game engine to simulate planetary water with significant changes made by players over time. Of course, performance is the key factor here. While it is great to have this volumetric water, if it lags our PC systems to death, what's the point? Thanks to the advancement of the VH3 engine, compared to the one the current Space Engineers game runs on, there is a lot of performance optimization. So it seems the developers are very confident on this, and hopefully when planets do eventually get added to Space Engineers 2, whenever that might be, we'll hopefully see water with them. Players will be able to live underwater in Space Engineers 2, it would seem. A previous demo shows an underwater base with windows and blocks that keep the water back. It has been noted that it will come with engineering challenges. The base is going to need air and be watertight. This will mean players are going to need to suck water out while building. Of course, you'll also need air for yourself while creating these underwater structures. This is likely going to be a large-scale task for players to undertake. Maybe we won't be seeing the city of Atlantis anytime soon. In terms of the underwater environment, the first implementation we saw was just a distant space fog with a refraction when looking through the water surface. I imagine this will be experimented on more as the development of Space Engineers 2 and the VH3 systems continue. While we've not seen too many examples of planetary voxel editing, the ability to edit voxels in Space Engineers has always been fantastic. You can create your own terrain and style it how you want. For VH3, the Keen developers have been working on many improvements to the voxel hand tool. Currently, our primary example is for asteroids in space, but the same principle applies to ground-based planetary voxels as well. The system is used in creative mode to adjust for landscapes on things like planets or asteroids. According to the Keen newsletter, and VH technical director Chendo, the goal is to improve the user experience and add features requested by Space Engineers, which are built on VH2. Spatial orientation is the main issue with the user experience. According to the Keen developers, this is. It seems complicated to tell where the voxel hand gizmo actually is when using it in-game. VH3 has improved the voxel hand visibility and shading to improve this. It also highlights the interactions with the ground via a depth shader when the gizmo is partially submerged. There are also added marks with decals denoting the closest terrain position in each axis. Keen has also improved the snap to voxel feature, which keeps the gizmo partially submerged no matter how far it is from the player, with a certain maximum distance. The feature can be turned off anytime to regain full control of the gizmo's distance from a player. In addition to standard features like adding and removing voxels, Keen have added material painting without changing topology. Basically a reset to the original voxel topology and the ability to pick materials, which provide a much better user experience when playing with these systems. Now I'm kind of very excited about this. The voxel is perfect for building crash sites or landing sites or secret cave bases, which we all love. Still speaking about voxels for a minute, as this does tie into planets, and this is obviously what Space Engineers 2 planets are made of, it seems VH3 is going for higher quality terrain. As of June 2024, there have been 4 main technical advances. Higher density base height, material based detail height maps, combined with base height maps to achieve medium frequency detail of about 1 meter. Composed voxel shapes uses caves, overhangs and boulders to add multiple horizontal layers. Finally, material tessellation in the renderer to add high frequency detail of 1 centimeter. Now there are many more improvements, specifically in the renderer, like depth based material blending or spherical triplanar mapping. I know this sounds complicated, but things like this allow the correct orientation of sediments in textures. Stick with me. This combined makes it possible for the artist to achieve breathtaking landscape views. You can see an example of what Keen has done with his canyon video on screen now. While it may be low quality, again this is a development video, so just keep that in mind. Now moving on to the terrain side, Keen have shown off an example of how the new asteroid voxel materials are done. These are aiming to bring asteroids to life with realistic looking voxel materials. We can see that in some of the recently released teasers for the game for Space Engineers 2. In another V-Rage preview released by Keen around 2 months ago, we can see that each asteroid features intricately textured materials, capturing celestial bodies' rugged and authentic appearance. According to an entry in the Keen newsletter, this is all without compromising on game performance. Looking at planets, the Keen software house artists have been taking advantage of the V-Rage 3 planet terrain detail maps. In another development video for the game engine, we can see before and after examples. In this video on screen, you can see the character reference for scale. So yes, as I mentioned, we will discuss when we can play on planets. Currently, it looks like the first version, or rather stage, of the Space Engineers 2 alpha development appears to be focusing on space gameplay. This is because with the trailers currently officially released by Keen Software House, we can only really see space gameplay taking place on space stations and asteroids. No planets are actually in sight. Does this mean planets are delayed? I would not say delayed, as we're not yet in early access. Something we'll get more news on next week, so I'd not count this as a delay. More so, I personally see it as Keen working on each stage of Space Engineers 2. Like you'll find one section, which will be space and asteroids, you then add planets and water, and work and refine that like solving bugs and such. You do the core aspects of game development, where you gently add features. Overall, it is good news that we have at least seen the development of planets in V-Rage 3's engine. It's a safe bet that they will probably eventually come to Space Engineers 2. It's just a matter of time of waiting. I don't think we'll see them in the first stage of early access release, whenever that might be, and again, we'll learn it next week. It's probably a safe bet, I think, based off the trailers we've already seen for Space Engineers 2. You know, it's important to remember that when Space Engineers 1 came out, it was not built with planets in mind. The fact that we have them working in the game is already super impressive. So I'm really looking forward to what Space Engineers 2 brings to voxel planets and how these features improve from the first game. It's going to be really impressive when we eventually get our hands on it and we're walking around on those planets. So, what do you think of the potential for Space Engineers 2 planets? Is this something you're excited for when it comes to the game of Space Engineers 2? For more development news, information, and the latest updates, hit that subscribe button. Don't forget to join my Discord server to discuss the latest news from Space Engineers and show your in-game creations. Thanks for watching everyone, I've been Captain Jack, and I'll see you in the next Space Engineers video.